Hello, everyone. This is Dania Esperanza meaning hope. Welcome to Hope Speaks. I'm going to read the transcripts of the book by Dr. Rick Hanson. He speaks machinery of the brain, which will help us understand stress. And this way, you understand how you can control your nervous system and be able to have a much more peaceful, happy, and much more fulfilled life by understanding the organ, how it works, and how you can get better control of it. And this is how pretty much the keys and the way that I look at it is the way you drive your life, the way you live here now is going to determine your afterlife. So here we go. And this is from How to Stress Proof Your Brain by Dr. Rick Hanson. Everyone wants to be happy. I want to be happy. You want to be happy. We all want to be in the state of well-being. We want to feel fulfilled and contented. We want to feel safe and unthreatened. And we want to feel loved and respected. Much of the time we do. But sometimes, maybe often, we don't. And all of those not so good times, we feel frustrated and disappointed, or anxious and angry, or left out, unloved and disrespected. In all those negative states of mind, one specific underlying condition of body and mind characterizes those unhappy states of being. In a word, stress. So in this portion of the program, I am going to describe two things. First, the machinery of stress in your brain, which is important to understand if you are going to gain better control of it. And second, a different way of using your brain in dealing with life that is not a wash in stress and is instead characterized by high levels of well-being. Then in the rest of the program, we will explore different ways to train your brain to decrease brain reactivity on one hand, and on the other hand, to increase a sense of balance, to see the world clearly, feeling more positive emotions, and developing more contributions to others. This is what I mean by stress proofing your brain. You can use the stress proofing in many ways. You can use it to reduce psychological distress, dysfunction. You can also use it to improve your well-being and quality of life. And if this is of interest to you, and it is to me personally, you can even take stress proofing your brain all the way to deep, deep levels of inner peace, unshakable happiness, and spiritual awakening. Throughout history, many beings have done exactly that. They've developed that inner peace, unshakable happiness, and spiritual awakening. And they've done so even in the face of great hardship or difficult life. Life still happens to them. Life is not always great for someone who has truly awakened their brain. These people still have physical pain. They still get thwarted in what they attempt to accomplish. They face challenges and threats. They get criticized, even despised or vilified. And those they love are the cause they care about. They get hurt or die. Yet these people still manage to preserve an unshakable peace and happiness. These people, and many who are alive today, have demonstrated and proven that developing a brain that is beyond stress is a genuine possibility. So, in part of this program, we will consider what is likely to be the nature of the brain, at least in terms of several central characteristics. And by understanding something of the nature beyond stress, you can train your own brain increasingly in that direction. Even just 20 years ago, there was not much of an understanding of how the brain operated. In other words, we didn't really have the tools 20 years ago to train the brain in an increasingly positive direction. It's been estimated that the amount of knowledge in brain science has actually doubled in the last 20 years. Plus, it's been increasingly informed by the world's greatest contemplative traditions, which have a growing intersection with Western science. That's actually like, pause. This is me, not Dr. Rick Hanson. The contemplative traditions would mean the different religions, and I go on. Of those contemplative traditions, the one that has had probably the greatest synergy with Western science is Buddhism. Because of its model of the mind is the closest of that of Western psychology, and its fact oriented, empirical attitude is consistent with Western science. So we'll use it as a model for what could be happening in the brain beyond stress, and not to push Buddhism, but to use Buddhism as a kind of pointing of instructions for what's happening inside the mind and therefore the brain. So, pause. These are the notes that I'm adding to this video, is because most people who have a serious belief and like they're Christian and Catholics, they don't like the whole thing about meditating. And I remember when I had the salon, I have a big beautiful painting of Buddha, and I have a lot of Buddhas all over my house. I love the knowledge of him. I've read his books about him. I understand that he was trying to teach peace, and people are like, "Oh, you're glorifying a god." I've even had my mom's husband, who happens to be Pentecostal Christian, come to my home and pretty much question me about why do I have Buddhas, and do I is that the God that I pray to? And I kind of laugh because when people are pretty much very uh, serious about their religion, they get offended when it comes to other practices, and they say, all you need is the Bible, all you need is the Bible. But I disagree. I think that you need multiple things to help you evolve and become a better person. Just reading the Bible, reading the Bible is not really going to, at least for me, it was not going to help me when it comes to having a much more balanced mind. When you have a lot of childhood wounds, and you are actually wounded by those who are extremely religious, you start realizing that you have to dig deeper. And this is when many other traditions and practices are very helpful. And we're talking about a message of love, a message of peace, of concern, and of trying to help heal others. So I hope that people who are very religious, they are also able to understand the way the brain, the organ works, and how stress works. It has nothing to do with religion, but this particular doctor practices Buddhism, and he is knowledgeable of that. And there has been science research that has proven that the people who meditate, like Buddhists, have the healthiest brains, so you can't argue with that. So we want to break it down and be able to understand how we can use it to heal ourselves. So let's continue. In the infamous saying, neurons that fire together wire together. In other words, science is showing increasingly how the flow of your own thoughts and feelings gradually sculpt your own brain. That means that in your life right now, today, you've got an historically unprecedented opportunity to use your mind alone in skillful and targeted ways to transform your own brain from the inside out. So let's get started. Since this is a program about stress, let's start by getting clear about what it actually is and how it works. You're in your mind and body. Stress is a biological based mind body response of an organism, whether it's a rat in a maze or a human today in rush hour traffic, to a disturbance of equilibrium characterized by high levels of activation, negative emotions, and typically an increased sense of self. Example, let's say you're trying to get a project done under pressure or in a short amount of time, with really not enough resources while being interrupted. Maybe it's rushing to get a report out for your boss under a deadline, or the kids out the door in the morning on their way to school. So, in that example, the equilibrium, which means balance or evenness, the equilibrium of feeling that you are getting enough of the rewards that you you need is disturbed by not being able to get the rewards here. In other words, the accomplishment of the task and the results will come with that. So your body and mind rev up. That's the activation part. Your heart beats faster, adrenaline flows through your veins. Simultaneously, negative emotions come naturally, like frustration, feeling pressed, getting concerned. And there's probably also a fair amount of self referential thinking. It's a fancy way of saying that you're thinking about yourself. Like in the back of your mind, maybe imagining getting the rewards or failing to get them, with some self talk going about what kind of person you are not to get them. Maybe talking to yourself about feeling unsuccessful or that you're inadequate or a flop. Or to use a second example, let's suppose something happens that makes you wonder whether you'll be all right financially, able to pay your bills. The equilibrium there of thinking that you are safe and okay in terms of money, which means that your survival is handled in our society, is disturbed. So, no surprise there, you get a little jacked up. There's a threat here. What should I do? How can I solve this problem? And you get flooded with negative emotions like anxiety, worry, and fear. I know I do if I start worrying about the bills or I get a letter from the IRS in the mail, plus perhaps other feelings like getting angry with yourself that you're still on thin ice financially, or maybe angry with your partner that he or she is spending too much money or not getting a better job. There's probably also a heightened sense of self here to view of oneself maybe as beleaguered, pushed around in a world of big forces. Or third example, maybe you get discounted, put down like you don't really matter at work or at home. Maybe a coworker snubs you, or your teenager rolls her eyes like you're the biggest idiot in the world. I have been there in both situations. The equilibrium here of sensing that you belong, that you are connected to others who like you and care about you, has also gotten disturbed. And this is an equilibrium of belonging that was critically important to physical survival over millions of years of evolution, when our primate and then early human ancestors lived in small bands in very harsh and difficult conditions. So when the equilibrium is disturbed, the ancient echoes inside the mind are that there is a real challenge of survival. So here too, mind and body rev up. They activate to deal with the challenges accompanied by negative emotions like loss or rejection, heartbreak, worthlessness, and shame, plus a sense of oneself that may include feeling like you are less than others, an outsider, unwanted, unloved. In other words, in all these examples of stress, plus, of course, in all the other ways that stress comes at you, an event occurs, and the mind and body mobilizes to cope with response. It is a mode of coping, of managing, that is an attempt to adapt to changing events in ways that in turn of evolution keep the animal of Asian and our Asian ancestors alive, or in terms of modern life, help us get through tough situations. As you can see, the stress mode of coping is a way to deal with life, and it's rooted in our biology as animals who have become what we are over the course of millions of years of evolution. The response is highly embodied, accomplished through highly refined bodily mechanisms. So I want to name two of these in particular, which are the sympathetic nervous system and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. let's unpack these for a moment. But before we do, I have something to share to the pages that I just read. I shared that I have a son that has a disability and his father passed away. He passed away with a disease called Savvy Sting. When he was in the hospital of Mount Sinai, he had to have a brain biopsy because he developed a brain virus. And this is partially why I became so interested in understanding thought and how thought works. I wanted to know one thought, how does it process through our brain and through our bodies? Because when the outer layer of his brain was being eaten up by this virus. And every time he had one thought, there was cuts that went into his brain, and his brain started dying out. And it was very disturbingly sad and painful. But it was also something that made me understand that one thought is truly very powerful inside our bodies because it can attack back if your brain is not fully healthy and intact. So, because the outer shell of his brain was thinning and the virus was eating it up, he didn't have protection because we have something that's like an ozone layer over our brain, and if that starts to die out, we don't have protection. And this is how my husband's brain started to pretty much die out, and we didn't have much hope for survival once he had so much damage that it caused death. And this particular book really illustrates how one thought processes through your mind and through your nervous system and how it affects your whole body. So it's very important to understand stress. And I am going to pause this video because it's becoming a little lengthy and continue to speak of the pituitary adrenal axis, which is very interesting. Thank you.